So this is a very special week, not just because I've moved into another new apartment in Istanbul, hopefully this time for the last time in a while, because we actually purchased this one. This week, moving in here has coincided with a very special anniversary for me. It's 10 years this week since I started photographing heritage architecture, interiors, relics and ruins. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is James Kerwin, and this is me. I'm an architecture and interior photographer from the UK that is now based in Istanbul. I love shooting heritage, abandoned places, relics, ruins, hidden gems and ghost towns, as well as off the beaten path locations all around the world. You can catch my content weekly, well, when life doesn't take over. So why don't you join me for the ride by subscribing, and you can also check out my website in the description below. So it's not just 10 years for me photographing heritage architecture. There's also another milestone, and that is 10 years with full-frame Canon cameras. Now that is a huge milestone too, because actually until that point, 2013, I was photographing always on crop sensor, on bridge cameras, third-party kind of lenses. And until I stepped into the kind of full-frame world and full-frame lenses and everything that accompanies the full-frame world, was actually what coincided with also 10 years of me making money in architecture photography. So while we're celebrating this 10 years together, I'm going to give you my insights on those 3 10s. The 10 years of shooting with full-frame Canon cameras, the 10 years of shooting architecture and interior photography, and of course, the 10 years of earning money. A kind of celebratory video, if you will. At the end, I'll give you a little feedback on kind of my thoughts on the future of this genre as well. So yeah, in this video, we're going to break down all of those things. I'm going to give you each topic, and we're going to just have a little discussion on it. And I'll give you some, hopefully, some cool images you've not seen from the past, and hopefully include some images from recent shoots as well. I'm going to kind of guide you through each step of those 10 years. So actually, it was about 13 years ago that I started photographing and using a camera for the first time. I was actually over in Melbourne, Australia, living and working for a period of time, 9 months or so. And 6 months of that, I actually lived with these 2 German guys who were into their long exposure cityscape photography. And they very much inspired me to go down to Queen Victoria Market in Melbourne and pick up my very first camera, a Panasonic LX3, an absolute gem of a camera with the manual controls on top, and that allowed me to go out into the streets and start photographing and practicing the art of photography. The thing is, as I got back to the UK in the kind of April of 2010, and I had this new love, this new passion for photography. I loved it. I knew I wanted to make money out of it, but I just didn't know kind of like how. So, like any person, I started venturing into all kinds of genres. Parties, birthday parties being the worst, events, weddings. I did wedding photography for like 4 years. I did commercial stuff as well, like people doing stand builds for my events company. That I worked for an events company for 7 years, and I ended up taking photography with them as well. And I ended up doing some sort of basic training courses in Photoshop with a good friend of mine, Will, and much more. But to be honest with you, most of it was just dabbling with the camera, playing around, not really understanding kind of where I was going to be heading with it. So I remember picking up like many little bridge cameras, little pocket cameras, and eventually stumbling across a very old Canon 400D. I believe it was a 400D. And this was the camera I was using with a Tamron lens to shoot kind of like portraits, events, that kind of thing, birthday parties. Amazing, I know. But that's what I was using. It was giving me some income, like a side income to like my jobs. And it kind of got me started, got me learning. Of course, learning a very different style of photography to what I do today. When I then looked to purchase a camera, I ended up venturing into something a bit more. I think I went from that to a 600D. And then eventually to a 6D. And it was around 10 years ago when I picked up that 6D. In fact, I had 2 of them. I'd upgraded all the wedding equipment to full frame cameras, And it was around about the September of 2013. As I started shooting architecture photography more and more, I gave up shooting weddings, and little did I know that was going to happen, because I'd invested in 2 full frame cameras, 2 full frame Canon 6D cameras, lenses, and all the equipment to go with it. I mean, I kind of stumbled in, and because I had the Canon glass, I kind of stuck to that ecosystem, and I knew it. And I knew that the gear I had would kind of be able to kind of just it started earning me money. So I just kept using it. I was never a person to chop and change my equipment. I just picked up a camera, started using it, and found a way to make money out of it. I went from the 6Ds to the 5DSR. When I photographed more and more architecture, I realized I was printing more and more, larger, and that camera was fantastic. And I've talked about that before on this channel. An amazing camera, an amazing piece of equipment that printed perfectly. I'd say very much it was a tripod camera, but a beautiful camera nonetheless. And finally, I went mirrorless and went to the current R5. Again, a fantastic piece of equipment. Now the thing is I already had the lenses, and that's where the money is, right? That's where you pay for these lenses. The cameras lose value, but the lenses, 9 times out of 10, hold at least some of that value, especially tilt shift lenses that I currently own. The brand really had nothing to do with my actual work. It was just the tools I was using for what we're now about to talk about, architecture photography in particular. But I found it easy. I found the menu system easy. I found it easy to find controls, and it was what I taught myself on primarily. So I mentioned that I stumbled across like Canon cameras. Well, I also kind of stumbled into architecture photography too. One day I was just searching online, looking for some inspiration, something to do, and came across an old abandoned warehouse in Suffolk or Norfolk, and looked at the photos and really enjoyed it. When I stumbled across the next article of an old asylum in Colchester in Essex, it was that one that really kind of struck a chord with me. It sent things going wild in my mind. What happened here? What was going on? And it wasn't the photography that necessarily drew me in, it was the story of the place initially. It wasn't until the tail end of 2013 then that I started venturing out with a camera for the first time. Now in those first days it was just going out to empty farmhouses and barns. It was Norfolk after all. There wasn't a lot there. And you're not going to see any of those images, these first few images in this video today, of course. But what it was the peace and quiet I immediately fell in love with. Just me and my camera on a tripod, silence around me, no mobile phones ringing, no laptops at work, none of this. Just me and the camera. And I suppose the first couple of years, as I was doing various other projects at work, it was just that love for going out on a weekend with the camera. I was photographing kind of all kinds of crazy stuff. Me and Adam ventured down into Chertsey in Surrey on a Friday night. We left at like 2 o'clock in the morning to arrive there at like 4:30, blowing up rubber dinghies, rowing across a lake, going into an underwater ballroom in the middle of the morning before sunrise just to capture photos. We would pack the car full of gear on a Thursday night on a bank holiday weekend and drive all the way to Berlin just for 3 days worth of photography. And I did it more and more. And as I started getting to the point where I was getting great images on these trips, it was coincided with the point of earning money very quickly. So by the end of 2013, the first bit of money came in from an architecture photo that I took. And it came in quickly. In fact, that ended up being sold as a print, limited edition, and sold out within 6 months. A friend of mine, Rebecca, was capturing the central shot, and actually I ended up just grabbing an image as the sun came in over those chairs. A few seconds before the sun went behind the clouds. So I realised quite quickly that to kind of expand into this, I would need to build a much bigger portfolio, and of course that means an expense to me. I was quite lucky because actually working for the events company in the first sort of 4 years of this kind of genre of photography, it allowed me to travel around Europe for them, tack on holidays to their jobs, and then I could go out and photograph these subjects. When you are passionate about something, I think it shows eventually, and you end up starting to earn money out of it, and it shows in your photography, and that's the point. I wanted to kind of just highlight the fact that there will be challenges and obstacles along the way. If you're setting out in this genre of photography or any genre of photography nowadays, just imagine yourself in 10 years, like what you would like to be doing, and I guarantee you it will be slightly different. The main key part for me is I threw myself into the photography, I threw myself into it, and that was my life. That was the driving force behind everything that I was going to be doing. The challenges, things like COVID, things like father passing away when I was trapped in Georgia during COVID, things like AI, things like software constantly updating and changing, and you having to evolve and keep up with the times. Finding the time to do that training, finding the time to learn a new piece of equipment is a lot easier actually than learning some of these new software programs. And if you show passion, purpose, drive and focus, I'm pretty sure that the same thing would happen to you too. Okay, so I want to talk about some of the favourite projects that I've done over that 10-year period. So in 2015, I suppose the first one that jumps out at me, photographing the old palaces in Poland. In fact, we photographed so many palaces in Poland, we nicknamed the whole tour Palaces in Picnics, because we had many picnics in the gardens of many palaces. Me, my friends Dan and Adam, we went around paying security guards like a bottle of vodka and a few euros to get in, and we just went around these old ancient places photographing the interiors. And it was there where I really started to progress my photography and kind of pull the best out of the interiors, get colours and tones. I started layer masking images in Photoshop and really pulling the best out of the work. Trying to blend light and timing with being patient on site and also pulling out the colours in post. So the next one that jumps out at me is my one and only time photographing in Portugal. I photographed some gems that have been photographed by many photographers since then, in Lisbon and Porto, and some absolute beauties in there. One particular place that I remember fondly was this old little farmhouse in the north outside of Porto with a spiral staircase in it. I actually manipulated my image in this one and it came out amazingly. So outside the window, outside, there was actually a terrible looking kind of building site, and it was getting renovated at the time out there and it looked awful out the window. So I actually dropped in kind of like a landscape from elsewhere in Portugal into that window. And it was a great success. This image has been sold many, many times. It's been printed in huge, large format sizes. It just goes to show the kind of importance of slowing down, and at that point I was taking time over my work. The next key project, I suppose I would go as far as to say, was one of the first Italy trips. Italy is a place packed full of beautiful architecture. Palaces, mansions, relics, ruins, churches, asylums, hospitals, and everything in between. It is crazy. There is stuff everywhere. In fact, on a regular trip to Italy, you can easily photograph 50 locations. And on my first few trips to Italy, I captured some amazing stuff. Me and Adam used to venture there just for long weekends. When I said about challenges and growth, there was one story in Italy that I've never really told to this day, and that is one that really does make me laugh thinking back about it, although it did cost me an awful lot of money. I had a car full of people, all the camera gear, camping equipment in there. We were venturing out for the day. We left the hotel, driving up towards Foggia. We got just to the edge of Foggia, and my sat-nav said turn right. I turned right off this ring road, straight onto a dual carriageway, facing the wrong direction. Cars coming towards us, it was incredibly dangerous. Luckily I managed to kind of get on over and park up, but just as I did so, the police saw us, impounded the car, locked it away. I got huge fines, got banned from driving in Italy. I didn't actually venture back there for quite some time. So when I mentioned challenges and growth, that's definitely one of those things. So the next one I want to really highlight is de facto, the first time I ever went to Georgia and Abkhazia back in 2018, March. Great project. It was kind of like photographing the old heritage in Abkhazia, kind of a fallen de facto region, and then photographing a town called Skaltobol. I remember walking around that town for the first time, There was no Google Maps, there was no pins, no locating of all of the sanatoriums. Just me and my friends on foot, walking around there for 4 days, trying to locate all of the imagery. And Georgia as a whole really kind of treated me great. In fact, I never realised I was going to be based there for so long. Of course, when COVID came, I stayed there pretty much. There's many images that I've captured. Some of you have seen on my social medias over the years, and some you probably haven't. In fact, I actually made a whole PDF book on Georgia, and I'll pop that in the link in the description below so you can kind of check it out. There's everything from landscapes and relics and ruins and architecture shots and city shots. There's everything in it. I mean, I was pretty much there from 18 through to 2022. And of course, how can I leave this video without mentioning Lebanon? Robert Palladori, he actually inspired me to go to Lebanon for the first time. He is a guy from Canada, film photographer, who basically goes to kind of conflict areas or areas of kind of interest after kind of natural disasters, this kind of thing, and photographs human elements, including architecture. And he'd been to Beirut after the Civil War, and I saw his images in Time magazine and loved it. I started doing research more and more. That was around 2017, but I didn't venture there for the first time until 2019. And when I did, I uncovered gems. Before you know it, it kind of expanded. It expanded the project so large that it grew into a book. There's only so much dwelling on the past we can do. What are we going to be doing going forward? Well, to be honest with you, it's going to be much more of the same. You've already seen I've been producing way more YouTube videos, and video content is going to be going, just constantly now. We are going to be doing more behind the scenes content, and as the channel grows, it will enable me to step down from doing much more of the kind of educational content, and we'll move much more into the behind the scenes content, but we need to keep growing for that. You'll also be seeing as well, kind of like a celebration of the 10 years. We'll be launching a kind of exclusive members area, subscription sort of part to YouTube very soon as well. And in there's going to be series and individual videos that are exclusive to you. And in there's already going to be one series that I hit on the channel a long time ago, and I'm going to continue to add to that going forward. When I go on a trip, I'm going to do the main YouTube channel videos. I'm going to do some member only videos as well, showing much more of the behind the scenes content, and kind of actually talk about what it is we're doing and what the place is like, and actually talk about the place a little bit more, naming and shaming, that kind of thing. In terms of photography, what's coming up for my personal photography, I've actually got a new series being launched very soon. I was hoping to release it before Christmas, but with the house move, it's kind of been delayed a little. I've got a few more places to shoot, to add in, and I think you're going to like it. It's a bit different, a bit wow, a bit wacky, but really hard to photograph. There's been some incredible challenges. I actually already filmed some videos in advance of that sort of series being released. So once that's out, those videos will come out in due course. And that just leaves me to kind of really express gratitude to all of you viewers of videos. If you've ever liked a photo, commented on a photo, bought a book, anything you've done during that 10 years that supported me along the way, I cannot thank you enough. It's been an absolute pleasure to do this journey with you and to showcase my photography. And like I said, there's going to be much more to come. Okay, how long have you been taking photos? How long have you had a camera for? What brand do you shoot with? I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below on all of that. And I wish you all well on your 10-year photography journeys. For me, that's all for this week. If you've got any comments, leave them below as well. And until next time, bye-bye for now, guys.